don't scare you. You're not dreaming big enough. When you open the path, you open yourself. A higher vibration will arise. Listen for the message, look for the signs. Picking up on the higher vibration. Stepping into life for the revelation. Picking up on the higher vibration. Stepping into life for the revelation. Healing the people.
Most of the creation stories throughout the world include language, include this idea that the language that we're each speaking is actually creating the reality. Both in matriarchal and in patriarchal cultures, the significance of the word and of language has been with our people since we stood upright and started traveling to new lands. We brought with us into each new place that we gathered, we brought with us symbols. We brought symbols across all the whole world, and some of those symbols to this day carry through. Images like the circle, the triangle, the spiral, the symbol of the hand, the heart, the hashtag, the upside down triangle, versions of arrows which point us into different directions. So our first language is symbol, and symbol is also the common language when we're not speaking the same language. So we think of these original early languages as a kind of a mother tongue. The mother tongue is the origin language that you came from, that you rise up with. And in our time together today, we're going to be inviting each one of you to access a place of mother tongue within yourself, a place where you're listening for your own true language to come through you as you, and for this language and this emotion and this sensation to be a bigger experience for you than the voices around you of the systems and the cultures. Can we just drop into a space where you are hearing your own voice? And I'm just going to pause right here at the beginning as you listen for your own voice speaking. As present as possible, what do you hear? And as you listen, increasing your breath, allowing for presence. Now what do you hear? Go a little bit deeper. Go beyond the first layer of chatter. What do you hear now? One more layer now. What's the next layer right underneath those first few phrases that you begin to hear? Beyond the commentary and reaction to me here, broadcasting to you, deeper into that. What is your true voice speaking to you? Thank you for diving in with me right at the beginning and just having an experience of this kind of listening that happens. It is said that 80% of our decisions in our lives are based on our inner world, who we are inside. Yet very few of us have ever been trained to actually listen to what's arising organically from within us. Almost to the contrary, we've been conditioned to listen to other people's voices instead of our own. Sometimes that's voices of caution from parents. Sometimes it's voices of reasons from teachers. Sometimes it's voices of what you should believe and do from spiritual traditions. But whatever it is, those influences are coming in as external inputs, but they become internal. And they become internalized. And before you even learn to listen to your own voice, you're actually listening to other people's material, and in many cases, material that is designed to keep you in a particular kind of thinking and being. We are here today to break some spells. Anybody up for that? Breaking some spells of how language is influencing your inner world without your permission and known consent. Not just language, but also image. So we're going to work with how image influences you without your known consent. We're going to dive a little bit into some of the nefarious activities of how image and language is used to coerce and dominate people to believe a particular way, which is ever on the rise right now. We're only going to focus on it enough to understand that it's operating in the background, and we're going to move our own listening and speaking to the foreground. I'm really glad that you're here. I'm Shiloh Sophia, and I have been creating with community for close to 30 years experiences which invite each one of us to become more and more present to who we are and what we care about in the world. And when I ask myself what matters the most to me that I get communicated to you above any other teaching that I have, it is if you cannot hear your own voice speaking to you above the other voices, then every decision you make is going to be influenced through the filter of other people's worldviews that largely you did not consent to. So what I am here to teach today and give you everything I know in this time frame is to invite you to this idea that you have this voice, that this voice is recoverable, that this voice is your own, and to begin to make a distinction between your voice and the other voices. Because if you're going to create your world with your words, whose words are they? They're your words. But if you don't know what your words are, then we're much more easily influenced by the external inputs. And as we experience during the COVIDian era, as we experience in election cycles, as we experience in media and news outlets, the data that's coming to us at this moment, we really have very little idea what's actually real. We don't really know what's happening, but we're receiving broadcast messages that are not necessarily something we consented to. I go to Instagram and I get fed certain images and certain stories. They're not people I follow. I've never clicked like. I don't want to go over there, but every single time I log in, I'm brought to these exact messages. So I'm in their algorithm. But what's happening is that we're being influenced in places that we thought at first maybe were organic, but now we know something else is happening, but we don't know exactly what to do about it. So your capacity to hear you above the other voices is a primary skill set that I wish we could teach to children from the time they're tiny. But guess what? They already know. They're already saying, I want to wear the stripes with the polka dots. I don't care what you wear. I want to wear this. They're already saying, no, I don't like that. Don't do that. I want this instead. They're demanding, right? They say what they want. They are who they are. So we actually begin to untrain them by our influence. And then it takes time. Sometimes we are in our 50s before we recognize how many voices are covering over our truest voice. And then when we start to listen, we often hear what we think of as the voice of the critic. And this has become a very popular idea, especially over the past 25 or 30 years, that there's this negative voice within you that's speaking to you. And when you go to create something that you're not very good at yet, who do you hear? Oh, why are you doing that? You should just give up now. Your sister's the artist. I don't know why you're even doing that. Or you go to flirt with someone you think is super hot and you hear, oh my gosh, they're so much hotter than you are. You're never going to make it. You should just give up now. We hear these voices from romance to abundance to creativity, and these voices are often backing us down from our own bravery, our own innovation, our own originality. And the part that's so frustrating as an educator is that the way that those voices have been programmed over time is now wired into the brain. And so in order for us to break the pattern of how you hear the critic speaking to you, we actually have to do some neuroscience. And yeah, we can do it pretty quickly here in order to start making a change. And my entire goal for our time together today for this class is that you would be able to hear your own voice above other voices, including mine, that you would be able to make a distinction between critical voices and dominant voices from your own and be able to clear those aside, and that you could discover what your relationship is to creating your world with your words. You may say, well, how do I create my world with my words? I mean, the world just is what the world is. What I really mean is your experience of how the world is occurring for you. How the narrative is that you're making up about how it works. And what we haven't been taught is that that inner language, that speaking to ourselves through place within you, is actually creating your experience of your world and then informing all of your decisions. And so in one particular way, you are creating your experience of reality. You aren't creating reality for other people. You're not creating reality at large. You're creating your experience of a reality. But guess what? If that reality that you're inventing has been largely covered over with the voices of oppression and dominance and lack of worthiness, then the world that you're creating out here is going to reflect that internalized, really being hard on yourself-ness, right? That's going to end up showing up because you're going to pick a different job, you're going to pick a different lover, you're going to pick different creative things, you're going to try to pick things that you're really good at so you don't feel even worse about yourself. And this is never more true as it is in love, in work, and in money. Love and work and money. These are places that are so challenging for us to navigate. All of us are going to make amazing decisions and horrible choices. We're going to have these track records we just can't even believe, right? That's all of us. We're not getting out of that. But what we're getting into right now is how can you consciously co-create the narrative coming within you so that it is clear and as pure and present as it can possibly be. And then you get to decide what beliefs you want to add back to it. But your experience of what you call reality is being created by an inner narrator. That inner narrator is your storyteller, and that storyteller has rarely been given an opportunity to tell the story it wants to tell because we're so in reaction to the stories being told to us. So a lot of the identity that we end up developing in this life is in reaction to what's happening around us. Today we're moving out of reaction energy. Is that okay with you? We're moving out of reaction and we're moving into action. We're becoming as present as we can possibly be in this moment so that you can shift your relationship to your inner listening and understand your accountability and sacred responsibility to create your experience of your world with your words that you're speaking to you and through you from within. The thought is that the externalized words that you voice to others, community members, your lovers, your children, the workplace, the idea is that the words that you speak out that are audible and heard by others somehow align with the listening that's happening within. How often is that not the case for you? How often is that not what you experience with others? They say one thing and do another. They're speaking out of both sides of their mouth. What they said doesn't match up with what they told me before. There's been this many lies spoken in 5 minutes. Like, it's an evaluation that we do as a people. We actually are very critical of people who act one way and say another, right? We call each other out on that all the time. Social media is huge for that, right? Like, yeah, but look what you're doing. You said this, but then you did this. And there's also a lot of people patrolling and trolling, looking for inconsistencies. We're being highly weighted and measured on something that we have absolutely no training in. which is how to create alignment between the words you speak inside and the words that you speak out into the world, and then the world that you create and build around that. There is the world at large as it's occurring. There is each one of our versions of that world. And then there's the one that you are at cause for creating, but maybe no one ever told you that you could make that decision, that you could actually be accountable to what you create. And so we want to become accountable to what we create, especially in love, especially in our relationship with work itself, and especially in how you work with your prosperity, with your abundance. Because if you cannot speak clearly to yourself about those topics, then the primary organization of your life is going to be reflecting the deepest fears and bad things that have already happened instead of what becomes possible. And the challenging part is that the brain is a part of this, because the brain wants to protect you from future harm. And the brain is going to summon up for you past experiences to keep you from being in more harm. You should take this job, only it pays less money and it's less status than what you did before, because you just need to do that, because if you don't, this thing is going to happen. You should not pick that person who is, way above your potential, because last time, remember, you went out of your league and you got your heart broken, so don't do that again, right? You should not ask for what you need financially, because you're going to miss out if you do that, because they're not going to see your value, and you have a fear actually that you're not going to be able to create that value. So the brain is actually in cahoots with this thing called the critic, only the whole thing is moderatable, only we're not, because we barely know about it. You can't get a look at it. You can't see what's operating. And what we want to do here today is to get a look at what's operating behind there, literally to reactivate the mechanism through which you speak and listen, and then to see what world it is that you wish to or long to create with your words. Let me state in advance that here at Musea Center for Intentional Creativity and Consciousness, we only invite people to create in alignment with what is good for all, what is equity inclusive, what is good for the earth, and is not about extractive behavior. So no one here is invited to use the teachings I'm about to give you to be extractive in other places. And that's often what happens with teachings. We bring forward spiritual, beautiful ways to manifest and bring things forward in the world, and then they actually end up getting used for purposes other than what the teachers intended them for. So if you're here now and you're gonna take the lessons and go use them for something extractive or harmful, please leave the stream now. Thank you. Now we're creating a space, and if you decided to stay, then you're in some agreement that you're doing this for good and for yourself and not for harm. We're going to begin with a body meditation so that we can become as present as possible. So I just invite you to go ahead and stand up with me. And we want to create a grounding and a connection with earth. And you can be any spiritual tradition. You do not have to even agree with things that I'm sharing. It's not about agreement. Do your own thing over there. But this is how we get started. It's a standing meditation. And so you just allow yourself to rock back and forth. Sometimes I put my palms up. It's up to you. And you're just allowing yourself to find movement while also discovering stillness. If you're not standing yet, I just ask you, why won't you stand with me? It's okay if you don't, but just why wouldn't you? And then I invite you to bring your hands to your heart in whatever way you choose. And just say thank you to the infinite intelligence of the heart. Thank you for this life. Feel your heartbeat beneath your hands. And now imagine that there's a golden thread and it's making the shape of an infinity between your heart and your brain. As we just gently ask for a reconnection between heart and brain, knowing that they are always already connected, and what we're doing here today is making it conscious. Just watch the gold thread move and notice the place that the infinity intersects is around the place of your throat. Heart and brain in a golden infinity intersecting at a place in the throat, connected with voice. We ask for optimal coherence between all systems that are available to work with us today. We ask for attunement to create harmony in our work together. We give thanks for the heart-brain connection as each one of us in our own way makes a request for brain rewiring guided by the intelligence of the heart. Thank you. And just a big, beautiful breath and a stretch. I'm not going to go into all the science that goes behind everything that we're going to do today, but everything we're doing today in terms of the direct application of the teachings is backed up by science, by heart math, by E=mc². We are metaphysical with intentional creativity. So let's go right to a piece of paper. I'm going to get my board. You get a piece of paper and a couple of pens, and we're going to dive in to metacognitive drawing. I'm going to demonstrate what I'm inviting you to do, and then I'll give you the instructions, so don't start yet. I'm simply moving my hand, and now I have a bigger board than what you're working on. Sometimes people do this on Post-it notes. So we're doing this, and essentially we are saying to ourselves, I am requesting coherence between the heart and the brain, and there's this particular focus right here, which is our throat and voice. And what we're saying to ourselves is we want to create optimal alignment between these so that the voice gets cleared. And why this is the way it is because your heart is actually doing more of the perceiving than the brain. The heart reads the field condition. And the heart is, when something is being perceived, the heart is receiving the information and sending it to the brain, and then back to the heart and back to the brain. When we get trapped in thinking about mind and brain as where we're making all the decisions from, it simply isn't true. You just think it is, and therefore you keep operating there. It is not true that your mind and your brain are making the decisions without the heart. They're all making all decisions together all the time. The distinction is if you're choosing to be co-creative, like I am with the fly who's here, I'm just going to be co-creative with creation as it moves through. You're choosing to be co-creative. And when you do that, you activate resonance, resilience, and open to new ideas. So let me just give you a clean board as we go. You understand the concept. And we're going to just be moving the pen as we make this infinity. You know that the top one represents the brain, the bottom one represents the heart, just because of the alignment with the body, and the place that crosses over represents this throat voice area. And the only instruction is watch the end of your pen and don't lift the pen. And I will tell you when to stop, and then I'm going to ask you another question. Okay, so heart, brain are connecting, opening access to voice. Do not lift the pen. Watch the end of the pen as it's moving. All right, 3, 2, 1. Now close your eyes and keep the motion going. Lift the pen. Touch your throat and the hollow of your throat with your fingers. And ask for a message for you today. What is the message for you today? Begin to write. Do not control what you write, and see what comes out, even one word at a time. Just take another 30 seconds. When you are ready, I invite you to document your piece. And if you feel like sharing with us over in the iMusea app, our team is over there to support and encourage you. It's the main thread. And so you just take a photo and share. And this is a part of our work together to be witnessed. And if it feels too vulnerable, then just don't do it. But if you want to, then go ahead and share it. And I will do the same. Okay, my post is over there now. So I wish I could see, there's about 500 people in this class. I wish I could see every single one of your messages and we could talk about it. I mean, we could just spend the day having lunch, taking walks, and talking about what came up for you. Because what came up for you based on, we've been together for just about a half an hour, right? We did preconditioning of the work. I explained a tiny bit of the science. We went into somatic action. The hands are involved. The brain and the heart are communicating more than they were when you started. And then we asked for a message. How we retrain the voice to not listen to the conditioning that is still in that inner world and instead listen to our own true voice is through practices like this. This is actually a reestablishment of trust. I've worked with tens of thousands of women, and the biggest issue is not trusting what we hear ourselves saying to ourselves because it has been so shaped by everything around us. And when we decide we want to make a change for ourselves, something isn't working for us. We don't like how we're being treated. We're not getting paid the right amount. We're not caring for our body in the same way. We know we want to make a change. It's a concept of change. We may say it. We might write an affirmation about it. We might tell someone about it. We might sign up for a class about it. But we all know that those results are challenging to maintain. How many people make a new commitment about food, about body, about breath, about how you're going to be with family, about getting on your taxes, whatever it is. How many times do you make a decision and you're unable to actually bring that through, the follow through? And because it's coming from this desire, right, for change. But the reality is that other steps need to be taken in order for the affirmations that you're creating to work or to come true. And this is one of the ways that we work here. So this is tip number 1, right? Is doing the work and then listening for the message, right? But here's the reality that we're navigating. You will want to listen to the message and actually start to bring it to life in your day-to-day life. If I take the message that I received absolutely to heart and brain and hands, then how my life and my world gets created from my words is totally different than if I'm just making up a story about what I think I should do or what the primary affirmation is, right? So my message was, you will bring this, and by this I mean these attunement manifestation teachings, you will bring this through and we will show you how day by day. I did not invent that message. That message totally surprises me. The energy feels like ancestors who are part of intentional creativity lineage who are supporting. And it's this feeling of a relaxation to my nervous system that I do not have to do this all myself. Because I really am here at this time to teach attunement manifestation over the next year, which we're going to do in our course, Abracadabra, for those who want to join us for that, to do this over a year. But I'm also here to just gift it to you because I don't want anyone to not have access to it. Hearing a message like this, the energy, the frequency is completely distinct from what you think you should be doing. So if someone were to ask me cognitively, well, why do you think you need to bring this through, Shiloh? And I would be like, well, I just feel like people need to have more access to the resources. I just feel like we're in an election cycle and we need some badass people to make some things happen in the world. I just feel like we need to reclaim the media, right? I would list all of these sort of obvious external reasons why. My reason completely changes if I receive a message from within myself that not only am I being supported, but I also get this, you will. This is not a maybe. I am in this moment doing this. I am bringing the message directly to you. Now the trust piece is, if I can believe this and follow this and let this be the place that I move from, the place of my inspiration, that I am doing it, that it's coming through, that I'm being supported, and that I don't need to know everything in advance. I'm going to be shown day by day. Like if I actually believe that message, because that message came from the subconscious, but it also came from my ancestor circle. I can't make it up, right? It's more true. It's more connected to my true voice. And the feeling is distinct from a voice of something I should do, or here's how to do it the best, or create the best results. That's a different kind of voice. This is this internal listening that is not just your world, but also the supportive influence that's all around you. So this is the beginning of our time together, and what I'm inviting you to do is to take this, and we're actually going to make an affirmation. Now, there's a lot of reasons why affirmations don't work. They help, but you've tried it, right? How many hundreds of sentences have you written to yourself and not followed through on? Thousands and thousands if we add up everybody who's here. So we are going to create an affirmation that's inspired by the message you received. And in this one, you are moving into the I am language. So you're moving into I am, and then you're going to see what comes. But we're going to draw first, okay? So we shifted from the internal listening, connection with heart and brain and hands. We received a message, and now we're going to turn it into an affirmation that begins with I am. But first we're going to draw. I'm inviting you to close your eyes. With trust, put your pen on your page and just start to move the pen without any other influence other than listening for your affirmation. The line is an extension of your energy flowing from inside to outside. Breathing. Feel your body. Feel the flow. Lift up the pen, and without editing, start the sentence I am and see what comes out. Wrapping that up, taking a photo so you have a record of what got created. So we moved from an internal messaging that heart and brain brought, and then we surrendered in trust by closing our eyes and just letting the energy within our body extend. It's like there's a thread between the inner world and the outer world, which comes out the hand. And then we brought it into the personal. If I was creating an affirmation for what I actually need in my life right now, and I was mostly going from my brain and whatever was going wrong in my life, and I'm creating the opposite of what's going wrong to create the right thing, that's often how we go to affirmations, and sometimes in desperation. Been there too. So a sentence like this for mine: I am activated in collaboration with creation. Imagine how different the world that I create will be and is if I'm coming from here. If this is the frequency, if before I teach, guide, paint, and write, if I'm literally coming from, I am activated in collaboration with creation. The subtext here to my consciousness right now is still, I'm being supported, which of course is one of my fears, that I'm not actually being supported. So my internal world and the influence and the field condition around me is reminding me I am being supported. It's also pointing to that that's my edge, right? Is not only to need support and ask for support, but to actually feel supported because the messages have come in. So that's my work, to actually believe that I am supported. And ultimately, that would be the ultimate next affirmation for me, is I am supported. So we're going to do a third illustration. Document this one. then the third illustration is almost like a summary of what you just saw me do, like that I just landed, I am supported. And here's what I'm asking you to do, and it's gonna seem just kind of wacky, but just do it with me anyway, because one of the things that happens for brain rewiring is if you ask your brain to do something it doesn't normally do, it goes just a little bit out into the future and it stops referencing the past and starts referencing the potential. So I'm asking you to talk to me about the process that you just did out loud, as if I'm like, I'm gonna actually pause and listen to you, but I want you to really be like as if I could hear you speaking so that you're being witnessed and you're working it out, right? Like, oh, say the first one said this and here's what came up for me, and the next one I got this and here's what came up for me, and now I'm looking for like the baseline of the true message I need from my truest voice. And you're working it out in language by talking about the process. This is what we call the witness. And in a virtual space, it's different, because if you were in a circle here in person, which I hope you will be one day, then we actually get to hear you and work it out. But you're gonna work it out on your own, but I'm actually gonna listen to you in real time as you talk to me about process 1, process 2, and now we're gonna be going to process 3. You ready? Okay, I'm so glad you're here. What happened for you in that first illustration, that inner message? Mm-hmm. I hear you. Yeah, so amazing, right? Yeah. How does it feel in your body to say that message out loud? It came from within. It's so different than the critic, right? What does it feel like right now? Right. Of course. When heart and brain and hands are connected, the firing and wiring is so distinct. I almost feel like they're so grateful that we're paying attention. This is like a ritual in paying attention to the way that the systems of the body work. What happened on the second one when I invited you to go into an I am phrase towards an affirmation that's inspired by the heart-brain connection? What came up for you next? What's your I am? Go ahead and say it out loud. Love that. Yes. How does it feel? Yeah, just trying it on. Yeah. Thank you. Let's just take a breath together. I know there's so much to say once we get the conversation started, right? Now if you tune into your body with right where you are right now, you heard what I shared with you, that the underlying message, so the ultimate affirmation for me right now is, I am supported. If you were to look at that first message from Heart-Brain Connection, that second message from the I am affirmation space, what is like the simplest sentence that you can make that kind of sums everything up that we've just done so far? Those are some good ideas. Try a couple more. Yeah. You know what's so amazing is that when we create affirmations that are not believable, it's like we're gaslighting ourselves. So we've been spending all this time acting like we should just be able to do this thing, which is like a million miles away from the reality, and we're supposed to believe ourselves, but you don't actually. And a lot of the experts today say that the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined, and I want to debate that point. And the reason is because we're sensual beings. My brain is connected to my sensuality. So if I can't smell it, hear it, taste it, touch it, feel it, then my brain isn't going to ultimately believe me if I'm just saying the words. Yeah, it changes the brain condition a little bit, but it's not all the way. For everything to be all the way, you have to actually feel it. So we want to create affirmations from a place that's believable. Creating fantastical affirmations that you can't imagine your way towards actually doesn't end up working. You've probably tried it hundreds of times. I have. I tried that leap from what I'm navigating to what I really want, but there's no bridge in between them, and every day backs up the reality that that's not what it is. If you're trying to make the rent that month and you have a negative bank account and you're like, I have the money for the rent, I have the money for the rent, right? Sometimes it works, but you know what? Come on. We got to do something else with this information, with this voice. This voice could sound something like, show me the way to create this money for my rent within 24 hours. What can I do? And then you listen for the inner messages. And then you call people and you take action and you reach out and you do crazy things that you're inspired to do because you're believing yourself. When you don't believe yourself, you actually don't get clear actions. And then you feel like shit because you didn't do it again, and your thought process feels like something's wrong with you, and then you don't want to tell anyone because you're ashamed only they are too, and so then we're not even talking about our problems. We need to create affirmational realities with language that our body believes. Do not trick your body. It is not kind. So that's the next piece that we're going into, is to not say things that are so fantastical that they're not true, that you don't believe yourself, because that goes back to the trust. I won't believe myself. When I practiced hands-on healing with someone who was in the process of dying, I said to them, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's try anyway, because why not, right? And so we did. And I really believed, because I am a full of faith person, I really believed in that moment that it could happen, and it didn't happen. But what I said was not, heal her now by the power of the divine. We believe in full healing now. I didn't say that. I said, if this is possible, if this is aligned for her in this life, if this is what is right and just in her timeline. So you give this suppleness to the universe to collaborate with you. Making demands on the universe without creating a pathway is not how nature works. A seed does not jump to a tree. You have got to have the seed become the seedling. You need sun and light and water. So when we create an affirmation that jumps from seed to tree, we're completely bypassing the natural evolution of how nature actually works. And this is a lot of what colonizer, settler, headset does too. We just want the fruit and the flowers. We do not want to pay attention to the root system. If you do not pay attention to the root system, the tree is eventually going to die, right from the roots. So when we do aligned, attuned work on manifesting, creating our world with our words, we do not cut off the root system. We create a pathway. And sometimes that pathway is like, I have no idea how this is going to happen. I need help. Show me the way. Show me, right? This invitation to help creates a suppleness in you. It doesn't assume you got the whole thing when you actually don't, which creates lack of trust. And over many years of people creating fantastical affirmations without any seed to seedling to small tree to big tree to blooms to fruits, you realize it doesn't actually work, but then we're ashamed at what ended up happening in our lives. And then we take over responsibility for it because obviously it's our world, therefore we created it. We are looking for true voice insight that collaborates with the unconscious, the interconscious space, and the conscious. So that which you have no idea about, that which you have some idea about, and that which you're conscious about. We're looking for an alignment so that we can find something that's believable and something that we can trust. If you can find an affirmation that is trustworthy to your entire identity, then you got something to work with. And believe me, if I'm going to go with I am supported, I am going to be at my literal edge in faith, believing that that's the case, and then taking actions consistent with it. So we're going to do, you're going to have whatever page you have. I'm going to draw a page on here that represents like a piece of paper, because hopefully you're not working on a Post-it. But I have seen breakthroughs on Post-its before. And some people go right onto their digital device. This is your piece of paper. Okay. So watch me for a little bit here as I demonstrate what we're going to do. So there's going to be a border, and there's going to be image, and there's going to be text. Okay? So first we're going to do a border. So just watch me, don't start yet. And I'm just doing a wiggly doodly border. And as I'm doing this, I'm saying to my brain and my heart through my hand, I'm creating a framework for this new energy and this new affirmation. Can't get this wrong, so don't worry about what your drawing looks like. So even though it's just a piece of paper, you're actually activating the art of flow, and you're creating a field condition. This is not just a piece of paper, it's a framework. And the amazing thing is that your eyes that are watching your hand move are perceiving the changes that are happening in real time, and it sends a signal to the brain through the eyes and to the heart and to the hands, and a circuit gets created that starts insight flowing, chemistry, endorphins. You may have smiled a couple times even. There's energy that starts to move, and we're looking for that movement. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do next, but go ahead and first just create your border if you haven't. So just create a doodly border. Let me get a sip of tea. I'm going to write my affirmation, and if it's different than what you arrived with when we did this before, change it. And write it in any kind of, you can write it cursive, capitals, whatever you want. Decorate it, make it your own. And as you do it, you're believing it as you write it. Okay, ready? So now we're going to do art. And I invite you not to worry about your skill. This isn't about anyone else but you. We're going to reduce your message down to a symbol. I started our time together talking about the symbols of our ancient people, what they represent, and how these symbols came to mean things over time. So if I was going to illustrate the idea of I am supported, what would that image be? And you're going to look at your affirmation, you're going to ask, what would that image be? And this is not about making good art. This is quite specifically a stretch for your brain to move into the future and for you to see an image of what support looks like or what your affirmation looks like for you. And so sometimes I close my eyes and I say, show me some images of support. And a couple different ones appear. If you're not a visual seer, then you're going to ask to just see like photographic images of when you've seen support before. So when the idea doesn't just come through, then you actually ask for real life examples of whatever your affirmation is. I am loved. I trust myself. I got this, whatever it is. So you're looking for image. Now, this piece, this image piece, is one of the missing keys in the journey of manifestation. Without the image, we remain only in language. And if we're only in it language and not an image, we're not activating imagination. Notice that the word imagination has the word image in it and the word magi, which is the root of magic. So we're looking for image and language. So I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to give a demonstration. I'm going to be pretty rough with it because I want you to get the idea. So I'm just going to do a stick figure. And this is me. Got my dress on today. So I'm putting myself in. I'm feeling supported. And I'm going to put a heart. So I feel my heart. I'm going to give myself some little hands. So just play here for a minute. And then I'm going to put the idea of ancestors around me, supporting me. So I'm going to put their little faces here. No one else has to understand what you're doing. And as I'm doing it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a line from each of the ancestors. Okay, they've got me. And they're all connecting to each other. I'm sort of designing it on one hand. On the other hand, I'm actually just letting the flow happen. And then the other feeling I get is that I am here with community. And so I'm going to represent community is here. So ancestors are here, community is here. No one else needs to get it except you. And then, okay, so ancestors, community, and then see what else? What else? Oh, I know. I want to have a root system. So I'm going to add a tree. And I want there to be water. So my roots are nourished. I'm going to add a sunshine. I'm going to add a moon phase so that I'm in relationship with creation. And that is my affirmational poster. And I could, if I was doing this for myself, which I am doing it for myself, but I would probably do it like 4 or 5 times and just keep working the image and working the image and working the image. Not to create perfection, but because as I'm working the image, it starts to rewire my brain. Not too long ago, when I was in an evacuation cycle, it was a very traumatic evacuation, leaving the house, fire coming up, like all the things, was gone for 2 weeks. I just moved in. I came back and I was in a dorsal vagal state, or like a state where I just felt like am I even alive? And I was like, am I even alive? Like, am I in here? Like, I think I'm here. Have you ever felt like that, where you're just like in such a state of shock or trauma that you're like, I don't know what the frick is going on? And I said to myself, well, I've never been here before, so I may as well look around. And I started to look around and I saw an image of a line of an orchid. And I heard from my inner voice, draw this image over and over and over and over in one line. Got the paper. I did it over and over and over, which was stretching because I didn't really know how to do it, so the stretch was important. And almost with each drawing, within a half an hour, it's like my lights started coming back on, my chemistry started returning to me. And at the end, I had this amazing orchid illustration that I ended up turning into a curriculum and taught on it. But it was the image. I wasn't going to talk myself out of the state I was in. It was working with the image and then working with my hand, which allowed for my systems to come back into alignment. So I'm going to give you a couple more minutes. Maybe we're going to do like at least 4 minutes for you to work on your drawing. And those of you who are already complete, take a break, and we'll come back with part 2. The live stream will just stay up and ready for you. Please come back to do what's next. And thank you for joining me for this part of creating an affirmation that you can trust, guided by your inner voice, and using illustrations as a way to get as clear as possible.
A higher vibration will arise. Listen for the message, look for the signs. Picking up on the higher vibration. Stepping into life for the revelation. Picking up on the higher vibration. Stepping into life for the revelation. Healing the people one by one. Standing under them so that they feel strong. Feels like love. Feels like love. Healing the people one by one. Standing under them so that they feel strong. Feels like love. Feels like love. Take the time to find your inner reality. Open your heart to all you can say. Just the love. Hold the hands that are holding you. Everything is made for you.
right, dear ones. Wonderful. So I wanted to dive in for this next little bit into the idea of the image. Remember that language and symbol come out of the image itself, and that our early ancestors communicated stories to us through image. And if it wasn't for the making of images in clay, in art, and on the cave wall, we wouldn't even know we had a matriarchal culture before this cycle. We wouldn't know that there was equity. We wouldn't know that we were the kinds of farmers and artisans that we were before the era of colonization increased 8,000 to 10,000 years ago. So the reality is that image factors largely into the way that human minds are influenced. I've been teaching on the power of image since my early 20s when I made my first book called Color of Woman. But what's so curious about right now is that image is what's making up more of the internet than language. Whether that's a moving image or an AI image or illustrations or logos, image is taking up the majority of space. We can never underestimate the power of image. Power over structures have been using images to distort and dominate people for generations. The one I think of the most, which is a really sad one, is when Nestle in the late 60s, early 70s began to introduce formula instead of breast milk. Now, this was an image and language campaign to have moms feel like you could just be on the go and make up this formula. And this is what the modern middle-class woman is gonna do. She doesn't have time to breastfeed her baby. She's not gonna pull out her tit in a restaurant and feed her baby with food of life. Nope, actually, this is the new image. And the ridiculous thing is they actually brought it into foreign countries where the water wasn't safe for the babies, and it resulted in lots of infant death. But when you ask a middle-class mom or upper why she didn't breastfeed her baby, because she was breastfed, she usually doesn't know. She doesn't remember how that change happened. Maybe it was recommended by a nurse. Maybe that was just what was happening then. And then my friends and I, who our moms were still on food stamps, we all got breastfed, right? I breastfed till I was like 4 because that was actual food. But it is because we were poorer and that was actual food. People don't understand why they make a decision. They are just being influenced. Why are our little, 7 and 8-year-old kids being concerned about being overweight or being concerned about being beautiful or being concerned about fitting in? Like, where are they getting this? It is being spoon-fed to us. And so we are literally saying, no. We are not going to accept the externalized images that all of the isms, racism, sexism, classism, all the isms, use image and language to control us. And we're just saying, actually, no, we're not doing that. We are not going for it. We're going to question the images and the language and the video, because now we really need to question video as well. We don't know what we see is actually what's happening. And so we have to actually retrain and reclaim our mind. I was going to watch one of my favorite movies in the whole world last night called The Secret of Roan Inish. And what I noticed was I was at a friend's house. I don't have watch TV anymore. We started to put in the and S, and literally probably, filled the screen with maybe 10 or 15 movies. Almost every single one was like a horror or something, or a sex something, or something yucky. I'm like, wait, let's try that again. And again, filled with these clickbait choices. And I literally avert my eyes because I'm so image sensitive that I actually take in some of that data and I have a hard time getting it out of my head. This is happening all the time. And when we hear of these really challenging things with like the quiet kid in school who kept to themselves, who suddenly becomes violent, and we're like, what was happening there? Well, you go to their journal, there's images. They've lined out the actions they're going to take, and they actually write that they're writing down voices and images that they're seeing in their head. And it's all internal, and we haven't trained them to make a distinction between their thoughts and the thoughts of this invasive media that's coming. And now, with the way that algorithms and cookies and the witnessing of our online behavior amplifying, we're also getting served up images that are appealing to our weakest parts or the parts where we want to purchase. And my friends and I have been trying it out, except I have been asking for a yellow bikini for about 4 years, and so far AI hasn't served me an ad for one, but probably within a week it will happen now that I've told you here. But a lot of other things, if you're doing searching, if you're looking at this, if you look at a certain amount of images that are in a particular genre, then you start to be served those images. And so we are constantly in this relationship of negotiating between image and language. Image is in the word imagination, magi, the root of magic, the magical beings who are carrying medicine, is in the middle of that. So imagination is connected with magic, and I mean the good kinds of magic where we are actually creating something out of nothing, what my grandma would call making a silk purse out of a sow's ear. You take one thing and you make it become another. This is the root of alchemy also. So you create something in your imagination, just like the affirmation. But if you don't do the illustration, it won't work the same way. The image is actually imprinting your brain. Think of trauma. When you have a trauma trigger, sometimes it's scent and sound, but mostly it comes in images that you are not able to control that serve themselves to you like a little mosaic, flashing and demonstrating. So you don't just hear the voice of the critic say, you are unworthy. You actually see images of unworthiness, right? You see moments in your life where that's taken place. So image and language is the operating system of human beings. This is how we roll. Only we haven't been taught how to work it, and so we're influenced undue by those who know how to work it. And let me tell you, they know how to work it, right? So here at Musea, we are retraining the image language infrastructure and inviting you to do the same for yourself so that you can become accountable to your own words that you create your world with. I want to bring attention to this painting, which is one of the theme paintings for our upcoming course, Abracadabra, the art of flow with attunement manifestation. So those of you who love this is obviously a complimentary offering. There's no bait and switch. This is free. This is here. This is for all of you. And those of you who want to study with us for a year, bringing this work in, you can go to musea.org. It's right there. There's an application. There's a $1,000 scholarship, and we're going to hang out for a year practicing this, including making a painting so you can put your images into it. And you do not need to be an artist. This is not about having any technical talent. This is about the act of bringing an idea directly into image so that your brain, heart, hand connection creates what's called a field condition. And a field condition is a space that gets created which opens you to different kinds of results than if you don't create a field condition. And we're literally working with the space that's around you. This is, of course, positive thinking, and this is the metaphysics, right? But this is literally like how we do it. And this painting is a good example. I did this painting in 2020, and what I wanted to communicate is an image of how I work. Can I show how I work in an image? What does it look like? So I'm going to explain it to you. But what was so interesting is that as I was asking the question and painting in response, how do I work to make things happen? Because imagine it's the beginning of the COVIDian era. We have this beautiful space. We're just about to open a 6,500 square foot gallery and museum. We have booked out every single weekend with like 9 teachers who are booking out the entire building. Got the mortgage covered. Everything's happening. I created all this alignment. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is what I wanted. I want this classroom to be for everyone. And this means I can focus on my work instead of just kind of doing the hustle thing on the month-to-month thing. And then of course, everything does not come to be. I have to refund hundreds of thousands of dollars that have already been booked. Like it's a big deal. And I was like, if there was ever a time when a 30-year entrepreneur and community leader needed to make some stuff happen, it's right now. So I want to know, how do I actually do it at a bigger level? And my biggest inspiration was to keep the company going, to pivot to what my community needed, and my goal for 2 years was to not have anyone in the company lose their job. And I achieved that goal. I was totally fixated on that. And we created collaboratively our Black, Indigenous, and Women of Color membership inside of our Intentional Creativity Foundation, our not-for-profit. We also worked on that literally for 4 years as part of our offering. So we had to do some big dreaming to create that in the climate and the culture that we were inside of during that cycle. And so I said, how do I work? And then I just painted and I listened. Because when you do intentional creativity, you are allowing that voice within you to speak, and you're allowing the energy of what's coming within you to be expressed. When you do that with us, you don't have to make a painting like this. Your painting will be your painting. But this was what I created. So this is representative of me. I am receiving information. These are these little codes that are coming from the cosmos. It's coming into the top of my head, through my eyes, and pouring through me. This is my unique information that's connected with my energy signature as a soul. That's coming in. But I am also looking into the in-between spaces with my imagination, and I'm also sending. So information is arriving as I'm sending. My brain is this feathered space, and it had to do with these ideas and this plumage and this capacity for thinking things that I hadn't thought of before that could help create safety and wellness for the community. Like, what do we really need right now? What is the role that I can play so my community feels supported? And so I've created this part of my brain, and as I'm doing this, I'm getting the idea that the best way I can support the community is to create a sacred space within the community, not take on the whole world and the entire agenda, but actually just focus right in community. Literally, I know that if I would have tried to face externally and solve problems externally, it would never have happened. Instead, I decided to hone in and focus at the level of the village. That idea came to me while I was painting the brain. And then this right here, this is the blooming consciousness. This is the support structure this is water, structure from the elements. And so I'm being supported. I'm thinking thoughts I haven't thought before. These little parts represent the mystery. And here's this really interesting thing that happened. I'll never forget during the brush stroke, where I did the stroke and I just went. And these are representative of stories and potentials that my brain and my support structure are putting in front of me to view. And these are visions that I took action on. We opened a virtual museum and began exhibiting art of thousands of women within a 60-day cycle. That's right here, right? So the ideas came, I took action on it. Also, we have the Fibonacci, which is the wonderful sacred math of creation. It's one of the math equations of creation. It's the spiral galaxy. It's our own Milky Way. It's DNA. It's the flower rising. It's the tree. It's the fetus. It's all of these things. It's the spiraling. And it's not just spiraling, though. It's vertical motion. So it's more like a vortice. And the idea of the Fibonacci is that you're building on each thing that came before. So if you look it up, it's 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. So you add up the number that was there before, and so you create this momentum. It's not like binary code, right? It's not a 1 and a 0. It's actually this momentum that nature does. And so that's in my heart is the sacred math of creation. There's the spiral, and then it just is like on fire. It's just like just blooming and illuminating. And there's like this little arrow from the heart, and it's pointing back to absolute reverence and devotion for nature. And I believe this was the moon over the water when I lived on the water at the time. And then I called this co-creation. I sold so many paintings from that cycle actually, and I'm like excited that I have this right now to show it to you. So as I'm creating the image, I'm creating the reality, and I was able to understand almost for the first time how my consciousness operates to the degree that I could actually teach it so that we can create what we want to create in our lives. And here's the science of this. Einstein says that the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. The field is the sole governing agency of the particle. So what that means is the energy around the places that particles gather is actually creating the matter and influencing the matter. So when you work with metaphysics and you work with law of attraction and you work with manifestation techniques, your thoughts are creating a field. But where we often fail is not bringing it into actual action steps. And how we activate that in our community is to actually paint the reality that we're working toward. And as we're painting, it's being discovered in real time. So those of you who join us for Abracadabra are going to actually be painting your dreams, your visions, your realities. And I remember the first time I did this, there was a house that I really, really wanted. And there was a whole bunch of people who wanted this house because it was a really good rent amount, and I just knew it was mine. I mean, I just knew this was for me, and I felt just fixated on it. Everybody have a moment like that, and I was like, oh, but what if it isn't? So I went to a painting, and I painted the house into the painting. And as I painted the house into the painting, I listened. And then I went to go for the walkthrough with all of the other people. And I'm connected to that image of the painting of me holding on to that house and that I want to move into that house. And we go up there, and there's like 8 or 9 people, and the landlord can't get the door unlocked. And I just hear, let me try. Of course, I try, and it opens. And we go inside, and I turn to them, and I do not know what I'm going to say in that moment, but I turn to them. Everyone's walking around. I haven't even walked around yet. And I just say, I'm willing to offer, I don't know, it was $25 more a month or $50 more a month or something. Like I was like, I'm willing to offer this much more should we be chosen. It wasn't enough to make any significant dent in anybody, but there was that opening the door, that was the offering of the money. I never would have thought of those things before. The field condition that I created through painting the house into the painting changed my chemistry, gave me access to a different kind of thinking, and in a way actually allowed me to compete. And usually I've done sports and stuff like that, but I'm more passive. I'm like, I'm not going to compete, let the best thing happen for everyone. Maybe they need it more than me. That's how I usually am. That day I was not like that. That day I was like, no, I want this. Plus there was a Virgin Mary in the front yard, so I was pretty sure that was my house. So I lived there for 2.5 years. And interesting thing, I broke a trauma cycle at that house, because when I was growing up, we moved almost every single year. And so that was the house that I lived in for the longest and broke that pattern of 2 years. And that was where that all happened. And so painting it into the painting. And then I sold the painting for like $4,000 and I was able to pay the first and second month's rent or whatever it is, right? So there's a way that bringing it into image, because we are images and we think in image, even if we don't think that we're creative, is going to actually change the potential outcome and is going to offer you a distinct firing and wiring to manifest what it is that you're calling into being. And we include a prayer. I want this to be right for me and for all. I want to be just with this. I only want what is in alignment. And so when I'm praying with someone who's healing, alignment only. And back to that story where I said the prayer and the healing didn't happen, but the exchange that we had in that moment, she said to me, you did exactly what was needed at this time. And so I didn't get that outcome. Other outcomes I've gotten, I'm probably about 50-50 of creating what I want and then 50% not getting what I want. But what I'm seeing in many people's lives around me is that most people aren't even trying for what they want even 10% of the time. All those beliefs, all those voices, all the ingrained, all the, we don't even try it. And then there are those of us who are like so over law of attraction ideas where the belief is that everything that goes wrong you created, and everything that you created you can uncreate. This is a really interesting problem. It actually is a cancel. You think you're more powerful than you are in certain ways, and you don't realize how powerful you are in other ways. But if you think that you created something, some really horrible thing that you created, that's really powerful, right? You're really thinking you're doing that, and then you think you're that powerful to uncreate it, but you can't, and then you blame yourself for it. But what you could actually be navigating is systemic oppression, coercive abuse. What you could really be navigating is trauma that is unrecovered, right? And so you're going to then blame yourself because you weren't able to create the thing that you wanted. But the reason it's a cancel is because we actually do have co-creative power, but we're not using it in the way that we could because we think we created everything. And so it actually goes like this. And so I've had quite a few friends die in the past 8 years who truly believed that they created their situation of illness, therefore could uncreate it, and would not get off of that piece such that they could receive support, because if they created it, then they could uncreate it. I know it is a very popular idea to think that all the shit you go through, you made up for yourself so you could learn it this lifetime. And I just want to challenge that idea. If that was true, then the tree frog, who is living in toxic waters and not able to reach the tree that it was able to reach before because of climate change, that would also be true for the tree frog. If it was true that every single living being created a condition for themselves, that would mean every place there was extreme oppression and conquest, all those people, all their souls agreed to have that experience. That would mean women who are afraid of experiencing violence are creating that violence. That is not true. We are not creating the violence. The violence is, and we're responding to it. But to actually say and believe within yourself that you created your harm without acknowledging the oppressive structures that we're navigating is completely unfair to you and completely unfair to others. I remember in my 20s being stalked and what it felt like to just go through weeks and weeks of this person running behind me as I'm going, like the destabilization. Are you going to tell me I created that so I could learn to protect myself? Bullshit. That is not true. I would not create that for myself. My soul did not decide to do that in some other dimension so that I could now learn that lesson Imagine if that was true for every child who's born with cancer or everyone who gets hurt. It's every refugee, like they created that. It's simply not true, and it's inherently violent and actually needs to stop. And we need to reevaluate how we're looking at this. And equity and affinity circles are really breaking this down especially when we look at how things happen with privilege. But to like get rid of that in our system is really challenging. And I'll never forget the day when I finally decided what to do about that person who was following me. And I remember thinking it, I can see myself right now. I was listening to Prince, I was walking down Market Street in San Francisco, and the idea came to me, and then I got scared, and I decided I was just gonna do it because this was my life. And I turned around and I started running toward them. And then we had an exchange, and it was over. That doesn't always work out like that, right? But I think about how many times I actually never turned back around toward the oppressor who was in my space. The number of times I got beat up at school. And then when I finally learned how to fight back, not just with my body, but with my language, and I started to call them out on their bullshit of how they were being towards me by actually addressing, why are you picking on the people who are smaller and different than you? This isn't fair. Why are you doing that? And then all the geeky kids and all the gay kids and all the pimply kids and everybody who got picked on all the time, they would come behind me. We were suddenly like this group who was like bigger than all the cool kids who were oppressing us. But this happened to me over and over and over. Did I create that for myself? Maybe. But maybe not. Maybe not. Most of the kids who are experiencing that today would never be so horrible as to say they created that for themselves. Are there things they can do to fix it? Yeah. But that's where parents and educators and spiritual teachers come in, because you can do things to shift it. But you have to know what they are, and you have to be ready with tools to do it. So the bad things that happen to us, you may or may not have agreed to it in some other lifetime. I have no idea what your story is. But maybe you did, and maybe you didn't. To say that the universe is giving you these effed up lessons so you can learn a lesson is very harmful to the psyche. I don't believe in a universe or any version of God or goddess who treats their kids like that. You didn't call it or create it, and it's not a punishment. There's an oppressive regime happening right now, and we are all up inside of it, and particularly over the past 500 years, the amount of conquest and behavior and power over structures has been increasing exponentially day by day by day. We are in a situation here that we're hoping to navigate. The fact that it happened, you didn't create it, but what you can do is you can co-create your response to it. That is your responsibility. You can create that response, but believing that you created it so that you could learn the lesson is harmful. Believing that you could co-create a solution now that it already ended up happening, that's where your power is. But you can't get to that power as long as you feel like you created it, therefore you could uncreate it, or you were a bad person, that's why God made you do it, or somehow the universe is conspiring to make your life so much harder so you could learn this stuff. I mean, what parent who is in their right mind would ever do that to a child? That is not how nature works. That is not a law. That is not science. It doesn't work like that. And yet we've taken on these metaphysical, spiritual beliefs that have made people bajillions of dollars, that we've been eating it and digesting it to the point where we feel ashamed if we are in poverty. We feel ashamed if we've endured years of abuse. We feel ashamed and we start to hide. And so then we create a culture where no one's talking about, well, not no one, lots of us not talking about the really hard things that are happening. And so we're going to create a different reality for you, with you, right now. We're going to go to the board. I'm going to tell one more story, which is at the beginning of the pandemic, when most of my entrepreneur friends' bank accounts went to zero. I mean, like zero within 3 months. And I issued a note to all of them, and I said, you having $0 in your bank account does not mean that you do not have a business. You having zero means nothing about what your sacred work is in the world. and you just keep that bank account at whatever level it is, and you just keep going. You don't have to lie about where you are, but neither do you have to reveal how hard it is right now. Talk to other entrepreneurs. We buy into, if we have zero, or we have a health issue, or we've been abused, or we've abused others, that that's somehow just how it is, and yet we're also supposed to uncreate it. I mean, it's not working. So attunement manifestation is literally a way to work with nature and imagination to start rewiring the brain, heart, and hand connection so we can create different results. And I don't know about you, but I would love some different results economically, and also politically, and also educationally, and also at the level of community. So we're going to go back to the board because you're going to create something new right now. And the energy that you're going to, the frequency that you're going to be working with is the frequency that you drew the affirmation for, right? So my frequency is the feeling of I am supported. And so I invite you to just become as present as you can. Let my stories and information drop. Coming into your own true voice. And listen. Sometimes you can put your hand right by your ear and on your tummy. Listen. What's the narrative that's running right now? See if you can hear it like a conversation. Now, right in midstream, whether it's negative or positive, change the narrative by choice, by inserting your affirmation right into the middle of the narrative. Take a breath and a stretch. You just created a pattern interrupt. We have to create pattern interrupts in the dominant narrative. Dominant narrative is just going to run until you stop it. We're not demonizing or shaming the critic or the voices. We're actually casting aside the voices of oppression. They're going to just part as we go along. Your voice that you listen to is communicating to you through a channel from your inner world. They haven't been able to demonstrate in any clear way the actual science behind the fact that you hear a voice. Some call it the ego or the id or the self. The fact that you actually can hear a voice within is pretty astonishing. We don't want to shame the critic into silence because it doesn't actually work. You've tried it. Your kids have tried it. Instead, we're almost like hacking the neurocircuitry and repurposing it. And so you say something like this, and you're going to say it your own way. And I'm going to do it right now for myself. The pathway that I speak to myself from within myself, I now repurpose for my good and the good of my community. And then I imagine all the little synapses firing and rewiring. And because of all the work we've done so far, there's a powerful field condition for transformation right in the space between me and you. So it's your turn to say it your way. repurposing the existing neural pathways for your true voice, releasing the critic and power over voices. Thank you for doing that. It does take time to rewire, but literally from this moment forward, every time you hear the voice of internalized oppression, the voice of someone who's been harmful to you, or your own voice of harm, I'm inviting you to remember that you did this work. And you just ask for repurposing, because we're not growing a new voice channel. We're not growing a new throat, right? We're repurposing the existing pathway. And I have checked this out with neuroscientists. I'm like, do we have to make a new channel, or can we just repurpose the one that's already built? And they said, of course you can repurpose the one that's already built. And we do that through language. I'm like, well, language and image, right? So we're doing it with language and with image. And so I showed you in the part one, working with several images to come up with something that feels true and trustable for your affirmation. Now I want to show you how to clear and move stuck energy when you're going to work on your manifestation. This is not like a 30-second thing. Like, this is a devoted practice, which is why I want a whole year to teach what I know about it. But you want to clear the channel. So you want to feel aligned. You want to ask for repurposing of the pathway. And then here's something you could do that could actually create a clearer space. And then we're going to manifest something. Okay, so watch me first. It's something like, because I'm sharing to catalyze you, but you do it your way and change your language that way. But it's something like, when I hear the voice of the critic, or voices that tell me that I'm never going to get out of the situation I'm in now and I created it all myself, it feels like this. And I'm just letting that energy come out. And actually, scientifically and somatically, what's happening is it's being released. It can't not be. The question is just how much are you willing to believe it? And I go and I scribble, energy release, until I feel like my arm is done letting it come out. And then I move into flow. Breath. And we're going to write a sentence. Where I was, and then you describe this. Chaos, disorder, disruption, whatever. And then where I am. And then fill in the blank. This one in particular I love for people to post so that we can see. And here's how this, you know, we talked about creating affirmations that are believable so you can start establishing trust. There's something really curious, and I have no idea why it works or how it works. When you are moving energy, if you will acknowledge that a change has happened, however small, like, yeah, I was letting that out and I was feeling like chaotic and nervous, and then where I am now is like, hey, what's possible? If you do not acknowledge a subtle shift in frequency, it is harder for more to be given. So this is part of attunement manifestation, is this acknowledgement of a change. This continues to establish the trust pathway. Because if you do this, you're going to acknowledge the change. But if you don't do this, we're not moving the needle ahead, right? We're not moving forward. We're actually, this requirement of acknowledgement, I can't even express enough. It's a hinge. And it's hard sometimes when we're in a really difficult situation and we really want something and we haven't created yet. It's hard to acknowledge and affirm what has been created, even if it's teeny tiny. But you need to, or more will not be given. And that whole thing, more will not be given, is not a punishment reward structure that the universe, the divine, is doing to you. This is a consciousness piece. This is about your capacity to receive new information and insight. And if there's anything that's true about being able to manifest, is that if you do not have access to insight, your capacity to create what you want with your words and in your world is extremely limited. Money, love, work, they get created in language. They get created in the inner narrative of human beings. And so if you do not acknowledge change, more cannot be given. It's like there's no place for it to go. I once had a shamanic healer say to me, you have a whole bunch more power available that you're not using. I can see it. Would you like me to help you open it? And I remember being so tempted. And I was like, I just checked with myself. Do I have the psychic architecture and the somatic embodiment to receive more right now? Or am I already going at a pretty quick clip and I can barely integrate what I already am carrying? And I said no. I said, the Holy Spirit is going to show me when the time is right for me. When I express what is mine to express, when I acknowledge what has been given, more is given, not as a reward, but because I'm now available to more. And this really has to do with your capacity for availability. If you are going to change your financial situation, your love relationship, your family, your work relationship, you need to be available to the change, which makes the field condition around you different. And when you are in a class experience like this, when there's an energy of 500 people who want to make change, then there's more of a capacity to change because the field is being influenced by all of us. Those of us who are desperate, those of us who have what we want, like it's all of us together, but it changes the field. And so when we're together over the year-long cycle, it's the group energy which is going to help us get things through that we wouldn't be able to get through otherwise, which is super powerful. And those of you who are sensitive at all can feel the energy of this group and this momentum building. And those of you who stayed until the end, you're in a different field condition than those who felt like they got what they wanted or they were interested. You're getting something else. Sustained attention allows for there to be greater capacity to receive what is coming toward you and what is available to you in any given moment. So we are going to do another illustration, but I just want to key back to the one before. If you do that, before you go into a manifestation cycle, you will be available for so much more than you would be if you didn't move that energy out, okay? So that's a tool. Whenever you're going to work on manifestation, you really want to create a change in any area of your life, do not try to do it in less than a half an hour. This requires time, like any skill. Are you going to learn to throw a pot in 5 minutes? Are you going to learn to make jewelry? Are you going to learn to make a painting? No. You actually need to pause and take time, or it will not work for you. Eventually, you get built up some momentum. But we're going to do a line that is to say what I'm available for manifesting today. You only get to do this one because you put all this time in, so we're ripe for this. What I'm available to manifest today, and you're not going to pick what it is. You came to this class with something you thought you were going to work on. We're not going to work on that right now. We're going to feel the supportive energy or whatever the energy is that your affirmation. We're going to make ourselves available. This is like opening the portals, and then I'll tell you when it's time to do a sentence. And so you can keep your eyes open on this one. I'm going to start at the center with the heart, and then almost labyrinth-like, making shapes around it and circling back on itself, crossing lines, whatever you feel like doing. Just let the pen do what it wants to do without controlling. Go ahead and start. And the whole objective is I am making myself available to what I want to manifest. Lifting up the pen, breathing, and then to write your sentence, you can say, I am manifesting, I want, I desire, whatever your language is, and just write whatever comes out. Don't edit. Coming to completion. I'd love if you share with us in the iMusea app, especially over the next 48 hours, to build the energy. So mine is, I would love to create a book with these teachings, and so my thought is, in Abracadabra, which you can find at musea.org if you want to join us. Like, what if the core teachings that came out, and we transcribed the videos or something like that, and then that could be the text for a small book that included the teachings. Like, I hadn't thought of that, and that's what I'm available for, which helps me to organize my information. So that's what I'm opening to. And honestly, as soon as that came through, it was like this whole other portal started to open up for how I could deliver the curriculum in a systemic way so that there could be a build of information. And the chances are that I will do that. I could actually now do something, which I'm going to invite you to do. Within 24 hours, I could go in and create a doc and create a cover and create a title, a working title, and enter the first paragraph. I could listen to this video or transcribe what I've shared with you today and use some of the information there to make my copy. I am going to back up what we did today with action, literal action, like on paper, in the computer, on the phone with a friend, but to amplify it. If this is really, if that feels juicy, and if I'm available to that, and if you feel juicy and available to what came through you, if you do not take an action in the real world and don't move it from the field condition to matter, the likelihood of it happening is exponentially less. Must take clear, concerted actions, and you're listening for it. there's a text, there's an image, there's a thought, there's a bird. Like you're watching the natural world for inputs, and you're being in a co-creative, collaborative relationship. So if I really wanted to take this to the next level, which I recommend that each of you do, I'm going to actually draw that book on my next piece of paper. I'm going to call it attunement manifestation, which is what I've been teaching from today. This is like one tiny part of a much bigger body of work. Book. And then I'm going to ask myself, how am I going to create this? And then I start doodling and drawing. So one of the ways I'm going to do it is by connecting with water and the ecosystem. And as soon as I did that, I saw a creek where I hang out, and I could actually take my journal and I could go there and I could work right at the creek. So that's what I'm talking about, where when you're in this field condition and you start noticing images and ideas, I didn't know that was going to come up until I drew it. As soon as I started drawing it, I saw the creek. Then I can, if I'm really doing this, then I could go to the creek within 24 hours and bring a book and start it, right? That's what I'm talking about. These are the missing steps of manifestation: creating an image, seeing what happens, receiving an instruction, and then following through. And then the other piece I got was listening to the ancestors pouring story and information, and listening. Okay, so that was the ancestor space. And then immediately I started thinking about teachings about this that I learned from my mom. And then I'm feeling like there's a whole bunch of teachings from the community. So I'm drawing them in here. And so another action that could be taken is I could tell the community, well, I just did, this is what I'm gonna do. I would love your support. You got my back? You're gonna be with me, right? What I could do is open the doc and put a link for my students. And the other thing I could do is go to my ancestor altar and change something on the altar. So if I start the book, if I share with community, and if I change one thing on my altar that honors the ancestors, I've activated a level of action that makes me available to live out the affirmation, I am supported. This is how I create my world with my words. I have created a community that has lasted for over 30 years. I have sold millions of dollars of my own art without gallery representation. I have self-published 8 or 9 books. I've developed my own curriculum. Am I exactly where I want to be in my life? No. Am I on my way? Always. Have I manifested miraculous things that I truly wanted? Absolutely. Have I lost some of the things that were the most precious to me in the whole world? Absolutely. This is not about that you get everything you want. This is not about a little fit where I want to have what I want and I deserve what I want. This is not about deserving. This is about showing up and being a co-creator with all of life to bring forward what matters to you, which is justice, which is equity, which is safety, which is housing, which is food, which is well-being, which is mental health, which is care for the environment, which is correcting what's happening with the climate, which is no more extinctions, right? Like, you care about all those things in the world, but you have a really hard time getting to them because you're caught up in your own survival, in your own narrative. The coolest thing that starts to happen when you start to be able to manifest your visions is you'll be able to stop just fixating on your own life and story and start making a contribution to the people around you. Until you can make a contribution, the capacity to feel true joy, true interconnection is just limited because we're so obsessed with our own little world. You, beloved one, have a capacity to change the future with your actions. Will you? Will you be one of the people in this next cycle of time who creates the paradigm that our hearts believe is possible? Will you be someone who builds up a parallel reality with all of us and who doesn't buy in to the false structures that are crashing all around? Will you be someone that people can go to when they're having a hard time so that you can help them turn it around? Will you be one of those parents who discovers how to have the kind of time with your children where you encourage their innate creativity? Will you be someone who influences an election in your country, in your nation? Never doubt that one person and their thoughts and their relationship to themselves can change the future. It's always one person who gathers people around them. There's a quote that's attributed to Harriet Tubman, although they don't know for sure if it's her, but she said, "I could set a whole bunch more people free if they just knew that they were enslaved." That enslavement has been rampant in most of our countries for thousands of years, and it has become internalized at so many different levels, not just the obvious ones. You do the work to set your own mind free and your own heart free and your own hands free for self-expression. And the first thing that you're going to do after you dance, your celebration dance, is you're going to want to help others get more free. And that's what we're here to do. So thank you so much for coming and spending this time. I know it's a lot of time to devote, but the chances are if you take action in the next 24 to 48 hours on what it is that you want to manifest, you will begin to notice synchronicities and changes happen almost immediately, because the reactions are very quick once you show up and do the work. So we're just going to complete with our song that we started with, which is by the group called WAH, W-A-H with an exclamation point. And we're going to just move our bodies a little bit as we complete this. And I will see you all in the next
If your dreams don't scare you, you're not